Mark Hall, the Supreme Court is agreeing to its first ever code of conduct. But Democrats pushing for more transparency say the self-imposed rules do not go far enough. The 14-page document signed by all 9 justices formally spells out how justices should avoid any appearance of bias or conflicts of interest by barring them from political fundraisers, campaign events, and from accepting gifts. The Code of Conduct is a direct response to calls from ethics reform after alleged violations by Justice Clarence Thomas. Zach Schonfeld joins us on Capitol Review this weekend, and he covers courts and politics with our media partners at The Hill. Zach, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Well, as you know, the Supreme Court now has a formal Code of Conduct. What's the reaction to this new policy?
Well, this really was the culmination of months, if not years, of closed-door conversations between the justices. And when this code of conduct came out, they had hoped that, this would be the end of all of these months of controversies and calls for an outside intervention. But after it was released, Democrats and judicial watchdog groups who have really been criticizing the court in the wake of all of these recent ethics controversies, they show no signs of stopping. In particular, they've taken aim at the document's apparent lack of an enforcement mechanism, essentially saying that it's still being left up to the justices to police their own ethics, and whether or not they have a formal document of rules, there's still no mechanism to actually hold them accountable, even if they violate these new published standards. So we've seen Democrats and all of these courts' critics still vowing to push ahead with their push for an outside intervention, push for legislation for Capitol Hill, and that shows no sign of stopping.
Well, you talked moments ago about accountability. How does the court plan to enforce it?
Well, this document is fairly silent as to any enforcement mechanisms. Now, this statement and this code was signed by all 9 of the justices. They have said that they will follow them, but they said in a short statement that was attached to this code that they were putting it out there to dispel a misunderstanding that they were unrestricted by any ethics rules. If you ask the justices, they would tell you that they've always been following ethics rules, and even though they had no formal code of conduct, that they had been looking to the one that was in place for lower federal judges. They had been complying with various financial disclosure requirements and things of that nature. So if you ask them, they just basically put into writing what they've already been doing. They said in this statement that for the most part, these ethics rules are nothing new. So certainly, even though it is certainly a significant step that all 9 justices were able to come to an agreement and put something out publicly in writing, like I said, there is nothing in this document that talks about if someone thinks that a justice has made a violation of these rules, there's no pathway to enforce this except for the justices themselves policing their own ethics.
Well, Zach, as you know, Democrats say more needs to be done. What are they looking for?
Well, Democrats, ever since those ProPublica reports came out detailing undisclosed trips that Justice Clarence Thomas had accepted from a billionaire and Republican megadonor, of course, there were many reports from both ProPublica and other outlets about other justices as well in both ideological camps. Ever since then, Democrats have been pushing to pass legislation that would require the Supreme Court to not only put out a code of conduct, but one that is binding. And I think a lot of Democrats want to see some mechanism, whatever that looks like, whether it be creating some inspector general office or something of the like, to actually enforce these rules. Now, that being said, even though Democrats say they're still going to push ahead with all of this, their package still faces slim odds of passage. Republicans have continued to portray this recent push from Democrats as an attempt to tear down the conservative majority court. They note that so much of this attention, of course, has focused on Justice Clarence Thomas, Justice Samuel Alito, 2 of the court's leading conservatives. So they view Democrats as not really wanting to actually put these ethics rules out for accountability. But in the words of Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor this week, he says Democrats are out for intimidation.
Zach, could there be any pushback to all this?
Well, I think we continue to see the pushback from Democrats and judicial watchdog groups, as we've been talking about. But on the other side, you've seen some conservative lawyers talking about that if Democrats were to push ahead and try to come up with some sort of outside intervention, there are some conservative lawyers who will tell you that that raises potential separation of powers concerns. Whereas Congress has much more authority to structure and regulate the lower federal courts, the Constitution puts the Supreme Court in a different category. And so some conservative lawyers believe that even if Democrats could somehow find the votes to pass some sort of ethics legislation, that it might not even be constitutional. So we'll have to wait and see if Democrats eventually are able to get something across the finish line. I really think there is a major question of whether the justices would actually accept their legislation as legal.
Zach Schonfeld from The Hill, thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you.